The 5 crew members of the Tulpar are stranded in the empty reaches of space, shrouded in perpetual sunset. God is not watching. This is how the developers of Wrong Organ, a Swedish-based developer studio, have been marketing on Steam and elsewhere MOUTHWASHIng, their second and most recent game and the new darling of the internet. And I don't say that in a derogatory manner. On the opposite, I'm very much a part of this burgeoning fandom, and it's wonderful to see how an alternative, heavy and polarizing work can attract all kinds of fans with all kinds of ideas. And that's why I'm here, bringing my pinch of salt, hoping to bring some new elements nobody else realized, while knowing well that I'll be revisiting many ideas brought by other players and reviewers before me. Be them obvious in game or not, it enchants me to no end how this narrative is a hodgepodge of realism and suspension of disbelief. This element is really needed for the plot to work. For anything else, I must give a warning notice that this video approaches sexual assault, homicide, suicide, euthanasia, abortion, and cannibalism. If you don't feel comfortable with these subjects, please take care of yourself and go watch one of my older gameplays. Or you can do whatever else with your time, and I'll see you on my next review video, so please don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when it happens, alright? Also, I must say that I will give spoilers, tons of spoilers, so if you really do care about spoilers, please go play the game. Go play the game first, and then come back here. Anyway, I'll present this in chronological order, not the order presented in-game, which is non-linear and splitting points of view, jumps in the narration. So, even if I open some so-called secrets, some people still can enjoy this and also the game, because getting to know what happens never equals to the gaming experience proper, as intended by the creator. Important is that everyone to go play the game if possible. You're not gonna regret it. Pony Express Cargo Freighter Tulpar. Crew 5. Planned shipment duration 382 days. Time elapsed 147 days. I hope this hurts. The 5 people composing the crew of the Tulpar are the captain, Curly, the medic, Anya, the mechanic, Swansea, and his intern, Daisuke, and well, Jimmy. Jimmy is there in the capacity of co-pilot, and it's not his first trip for the Pony Express in this role. He doesn't have any habilitation to do so, to occupy this place. He's just there because Curly knew him back on Earth. They are good friends, and Curly indicated him as his second to the company. Pony Express is the capitalist giant of ship's price freight service, or better saying, it was. Due to bad management, read laziness and embezzlement, Pony Express went bankrupt and it's being terminated. The jobs of our friends here in the crew are being terminated too, before the end of the trip. But I'll talk back about that later. First, I'll present a summary of the events. As we read above, 147 days from 382 days have already elapsed without incident. Curly and Jimmy spending their days mostly doing nothing at the cockpit, Anya mostly doing nothing at the medical area or the mess room. In the utility, Swansea teaching the job to Daisuke and scolding him constantly for no reason. Only today is not for no reason. Daisuke disobeyed orders about not tinkering with the ventilation shaft and the trapdoor leading to it from the utility room downstairs to the medical upstairs, and it triggered the spread of some muffler foam around, and Daisuke got stuck on its viscosity. Now everyone please pay attention to this delightful sound. Only my first hint of how gnarly this soundtrack and sound engineering really are. After Captain Curly takes his mandatory periodical psychological evaluation from Anya in medic, he uses his captain privilege to have access to an axe to pry loose poor Daisuke. That axe will be important later. Foreshadowing. And now everyone please pay attention to this vaguely annoying sound. It will be important later too. Soon after, he meets co-pilot Jimmy, since he promised to Anya to apply Jimmy's evaluation in her stead. Jimmy enjoys embarrassing her by providing jackass answers she has to put down in the form, like the infamous finding himself sexually aroused at the sight of cartoon horses. Anya doesn't exactly have a reason to complain about filling the form, since she can just write down whatever shit she wants, and no one will be the wiser. But she's serious about those, and it's true she feels embarrassed by making the interview only, given the situation, so it's a kindness of Curly to do that for her. And what situation? The situation. I will get there. Now Curly goes to meet Jimmy at a cockpit, but he kind of zones out, kind of hallucinates for a while. Some scenes in the game are hallucinations, while some others are allegorical spaces to explore current psychological states. And maybe this is one of those. Applying the evaluation is a chore, and Curly is kind of full of chores. Kind of slightly burned out. No pun intended. Yes, pun intended! Well, yeah. Anyway, he didn't give genuine responses during the evaluation, only repeated the same ones from last time, so he bluntly lied to Anya. Maybe they have feelings for each other? Sometimes it seems so. Like when he says he wants to be a good pilot in her eyes, it may seem seriously about psychological evaluation, but it may be he's subtly hitting on her. Anyway, now we have the first glimpse of Anya's personality, how assertive she is, with a sense of humor, secure of herself, but at the same time, the effort that cost her to keep positive about her anxiety, as we can see by this pretty self-help sign she made for her board. It says, positive affirmations. You are enough. All feelings are okay. You are valid. You are not alone. You will be alright. Not all thoughts are true. This feeling will pass. You are not a burden, and this does not define you. But soon after, Curly is at least a little out of sorts. That's why everything's weird on the way to the cockpit. And as expected, Jimmy is not willing to take the evaluation, because he knows he's spiraling, and he doesn't want to declare that, but also doesn't want to lie. But above all, because such evaluations are bullshit. The company doesn't care, nobody cares. Nobody's gonna read them. And even if somebody did, nothing would change. After the interview, Curly prods Jim to talk a little more privately off the record, but he ends up himself opening up about considering to change jobs to something else. In response, Jimmy seems to be understanding of Curly's feelings, but actually, he's just stating the obvious, rephrasing what Curly himself just said. He understands, yes, what Curly said, not what he feels. So, as you see, Jimmy has four positive sentences to say to his best friend, thanks to whom he's got a job he's not apt to perform, about the guy's personal quandaries, and then he immediately makes it to be about himself. Truth is, Jimmy is a psychopath. Psychopaths are chameleon. They blend in the scene, they mingle in any group, they sense what you say to make people happy, what people expect to be told, so they just feed them with truisms. And that's exactly what Jimmy does here. And he's not even particularly affording. So many netizens say this scene is so profound. Male friends having this thoughtful conversation, but something about it rubbed me the wrong way since the beginning. At the end of the scene, a message from administration arrives, and Jimmy understands it's for the captain's eyes only, and leaves. We can never read the message, but we understand its contents right away, since now starts one of those surreal sequences. Only this one is not from or for or by Jimmy, or I believe they are addressed to us, players. We watch some mini shows in this interactive vintage TV. We can zap channels, and it lets us know what's going on. The company has not been managed properly and it broke, leaving our employees to their fate. It's so distressing, so weakening. It's like a black hole can swallow us. Next show confirms how small we are, like atoms. Like small atoms compose big bodies. Small fish like this crew compose the big company that uses and discards them inconsequently. Like in a meat processing plant, where the charnel arrives whole, is quartered, carved, and packed, and soon sent forth to open space for more charnel. The next show is even bleaker, portraying extremely stereotyped men of all echelons of the production chain in society. The redneck farmer, the thug proletarian, the psychopath middleman, and the industry mogul with his greedy, fiendish smile, all rioting about a strike, and perhaps Curly fears a mutiny. Perhaps he wonders if he joins the crew, it still is a mutiny, or may it be called a strike? Now, I wonder how can possibly work a strike in space. Yeah, let's take revolution to space. Let's take socialism to space. After all, the swindler peddler is offering an ism, capitalism, imperialism, and the solution is to drink. That's foreshadowing, if I ever saw it before. By the way, there's also this show of a cute dancing skeleton from an antique silent movie. I didn't quite get what it means before being enchanted by its little happy dying dance. For some reason, everyone who watched it remembered the spooky scary skeleton. Me too, but I didn't write it in the original screenplay because I didn't exactly remember the words, but yeah, spooky scary skeleton, another animation about which I cannot properly explain much, but anyway. Mouthwash. That's why we've been living for nearly 7 months in aggravating conditions that I will describe in detail later. That's why we've been laid off. Pony Express chose to make the retiring cycle of the once glorious Tulpar an egregious delivery. How can so much mouthwash be of any importance to anyone? To be carried in such quantity through space? It's a mummery. The company is mocking us. It's so unhelpful, it's not even funny. Well, not exactly unhelpful. This particular brand of mouthwash contains 14% of ethylic alcohol, around the same as a Cabernet Sauvignon red wine, plus some sugar. So it has a lot of calories. But it may contain eucalyptol that causes delirium, convulsions, coma, and death. Benzoic acid that causes gastritis, gastroesophageal reflux, and ulcers. Salicylates that cause low blood pressure, dysrhythmia and dizziness, and zinc chloride that is corrosive, causes burns in the entire digestive system, and may lead to chronic migraine and anorexia. Anya is understandably frightened out of her mind, knowing she's the only female around the staff too ready to become permanently stoned, plastered, for heavens know how long. We all know how rowdy and ruthless people get when swimming in an ocean of booze, and she's pregnant. But then, as promised, to follow a chronological order, let's put aside this 2 months after stuff for now and focus on the continuity. Curly somehow was able to keep the bad news in secret for an entire day, although the corporate ordered him to only tell much closer at the end of the trip. And now we roll with a truly harrowing scene. They are throwing me a birthday party when I have to break the news that we are all fired. Perhaps me too. Guys, I love you fam, but fuck, this party breaks me. I should feel moved and grateful, but I only feel embarrassed and anxious. How can I give you the bad news now? But I feel I have to. At least I can take some solace by operating the kitchen machine, considering I'm telling you folks that the game doesn't follow the order that I'm presenting. So yeah, by this point of the gameplay, I already had opportunity to come close to the machine, but not use it, and then this happens. So the cake recipe says we have to mix a pouch of water that's blue and the gelatin that's yellow, and then mix the cake base with a sweetener that is pink. Okay, I need a blue and a yellow. It's so nice that now I will be able to test the machines. Water is a 3142. And this is the thing, a water packet. I can take the water packet or leave it like that. But no, now I want the gelatin packet, which is 4213. You see, people, all of this is so controlled and artificial. We are like guinea pigs. We are like monkeys in a circus. We cannot even cook our own food. We have 1 year of traveling, living off of packets. Packets that we cannot even catch ourselves from a box or a storage. It's a stupid machine that delivers it by hand to us, one by one. And if the machine breaks, what will we do? And if the other machine breaks, what will we do? But yeah, gelatin 4213. Yeah, it's good to know that it's impossible to make the numbers repeat. So yeah, I want the gelatin. So now we put the things here, over here. The gelatin? Oh, no. Yeah, we can. Okay. And now we pull the lever. And the thing makes our food in secret. Just look at it. It's ridiculous. It's really, really insulting. What the fuck are we eating? It's made in hell or what? What kind of a machine is this that can mix the content of a closed packet that we never open and look inside? 2 of them actually, different ones. To make this in like 2 seconds. How? Why would we want to eat that? How bad can it taste? How artificial can it be? And how poisonous can it be? I mean, it seems the kind of thing that can kill us, sincerely. But no, I need to get the sweetener. That's a restricted item. 2341. So I take the plain cake from the center. I put the plain cake in one side, and I put the sweetener on the other side. And with the plain cake and the sweetener, we somehow magically, in perhaps 2 seconds, but I'm placing my bets on a little more than 2 seconds, we have a complete, huge, delicious, awful, synthetic, poisonous, killer, artificial cake. Okay, let's do it. The sounds are really weird. Okay, I have a birthday cake. And I will splatter it in the face of someone. Yeah, someone's face. Who's the one? Who's the winner to be awarded with a cake in the face for the stupidest idea of throwing me a birthday party in the exact same day that I have to say that you guys were fired. You were jobless. You have no money and nowhere to go. And then this happens. What Curly told Jimmy in private was to be in strict confidence, but Jimmy outs it so he can try to distort Curly's speech to impress the others. But what is the objective? Is it really a mutiny? Am I in danger from the same people that threw me an adorable surprise birthday party? Totally untimely. Actually, it's not even certain Curly was fired too. We cannot read the notice, and he doesn't tell it to anyone. We don't see him saying. We only see Jimmy, and just Jimmy, commenting on it. And by now, I suppose you guys already noticed Jimmy is not exactly trustworthy. Actually, the game developers published somewhere else through Steam the entire corporate letter. It says Curly was even promoted. Whatever it may mean to be promoted to a dead company, I understood he would receive a big bonus and recommendations with flying colors. I suppose it also means Curly told him. Jimmy feels in Curly's wish to start anew a kind of ungratefulness, like despising the privileged position he got to. It is not true. Curly only wants a job in which he's not pressured to lead and trouble solve. He seems to be wanting a simpler life, more autonomous, maybe a family. He flattered Jimmy, but Jimmy didn't even get it. Jimmy never gets it. By the way, shout out to developers. It's so nice of you to interact with us and entertain our loving shenanigans to your game, but it's not so nice to expect the players to operate on the premises published elsewhere, outside the game. The instant fans will devour anything we can find during and after playing, and then play again and go after some more. But the casual player should not be left missing out important information. This is a scene in which we clearly realize for the first time how Jimmy is the main person, how abusive he is, especially to Curly, to whom I have no doubt he has been manipulative for a long time. I mean, he interrupts his captain talking and whacks the table for emphasis. That's clear insubordination, but Curly just quiets, just as Curly quieted about Jimmy sitting at the head of a table on his back while he was busy with a cake. About Anya, he says, let's be real, offensive by itself. What does it mean? That Anya is dumb? That she has mental illness? But by now, Anya got used to be belittled by Jimmy in front of the others, and she's so immersed in her own despair, she doesn't even consider to retort. After all, with a layoff, her dream of entering medical school seems farther away than ever. And according to the developer's Steam Q&A, she already tried 8 times. And now she has a growing issue to worry about. About Swansea. He calls him old. Yeah, it's harder to get a job after 40, but not that much with his mechanical skills. And with medical science the way it is, and retirement laws the way they are everywhere, he still has 20 or 30 productive years, if his liver is not that busted. But Swansea is too deep in his anger towards Pony Express to care to take offense. And about Daisuke, he says, Mommy and Daddy, those affectionates are for you and yours, not fucking Jimmy. And if Daisuke is spoiled, so what? It's not Jimmy business. But, of course, he also feels envious he doesn't have a mommy and daddy to silver mouth spoon him. And to think in hindsight, maybe he had them, but wasted it with his trashy personality. Okay, it's pure conjecture, but still a possibility. And Daisuke is just an intern. Jimmy is his superior, so he quiets too. All in all, maybe you would be more hypocritical but also more professional of Curly to not tell them all they are laid off right now. It's distressing, yeah, but it's his burden to carry. It's his role as a leader, and it's hard to imagine what benefit you thought he could bring to make the crew disgruntled 8 months before anyone can do something. So now, what remains is to eat the bitter cake of resentment. Only one more symbol of our oppression at a company. What should be a celebrative treat that brings happy memories actually is this showy industrial devilish thing, because the shady thing spits out a complex concoction made of impossible ingredients, and we cannot even see it operating. I'm impressed. More commentators are not impressed about how outlandish the thing is. And what's more, sweetener is the captain's privilege? It's not even real sugar. Sugar! Real astronauts are given tang and other flavorful drinks, pastes and powders to help to ward off space depression, a very real condition. Not wonder to read one of the developers' inspirations was the film Pandorum, and I so love it. I've watched it I don't know how many times. Pandorum describes a type of paranoid psychosis that affects long-term astronauts, especially people who were put under cryogenic sleep many times, stemming from confinement, homesickness, and the way how time elapses artificially slower in space. I'm delving so much on the cake scene because, to me, it was truly horrifying. The sound effects were so unnerving. I was so embarrassed. And also, fearing they see me as a representative of the company and physically attack me. I wasted the chance to talk to everyone and examine everything on my first run. So willing I was to bake and eat the cake at once, fast, and get it over with it soon. It's so surreal to have to cut a cake when just grabbing the knife can be a threat, and we just want to pick it up and run to hide. I was so sure that when I grabbed the knife, someone would jump me and take it out from me and use it to stab me or something. Plus, see how interesting, the knife serves only to cut the cake, since apparently everything we eat is not cut. And how convenient to the plot is that after the cake scene things go to hell, but still the knife only reappears at the feast scene. How about the life of me? Have these people been opening food cans without a knife? I mean, a good knife. You see, family, I'm a person very interested in food and cooking. I enjoy cooking, eating, talking about food, and collecting recipes. I only dislike mukbang. Like, I really hate it. But it's beside the point. Oh, also, eating contests. I hate them. Well, I have this soft spot for sailing rations, space rations, military rations, emergency foods. So yeah, I'm tingling curious about Pony Express victuals. Were there other kinds of pouches besides the ones in the book? Nutrition pouches. Acquire the following ingredients from the nutrition pouch dispenser trademark. Water 3142. A convenient and stylishly modern pasteurized water sack. Perfect for on the go while working rehydration. Reminder: do not ingest shower and or sink water. Only designated sack water is safe for consumption. Nutrition pouches. Acquire the following ingredients from the nutrition pouch dispenser trademark. Gelatin 4213. Enriched flavor receptacle gel created by ingenious kitchen artists for optimal mouthfeel. Chew before swallowing. Injected with necessary vitamins and other supplements from various biological sources. I wonder what sources. Restricted item. Acquire the following ingredients from the nutrition pouch dispenser trademark. Captain access only. Code scanner to retrieve dispenser. Code strictly captain only. Oh god. Okay, we got it. Sweetener to be used only for crew morale boosting activities. Celebration prohibited in case of mediocre performance. It hurts, right? This hurts. Acquire the following ingredients from the nutrition pouch dispenser trademark. Tonic 1324. Bitter and zesty tonic water made to spice up. Blend contains quinine. Drink in moderation to avoid the health-related complications. So, for example, now we know that they may not drink from the kitchen faucet. It's recycled water, and they have to drink from the pouches. Then, how so, Anya? Can wash Curly's wounds? Or the med bay faucet has clean water? How come after the crash no one seems worried about the water supply? Where the pouches are stored, they must have had another much bigger room for a larder, one which Curly could have ordered empty, and Swansea improvised an external boat with soldering equipment to jail out Jimmy's ass. They surely have saws and hammers to fit it with a dog door to pass him food and retrieve his waste. Even better, a room with a drain on the floor. And about the others' waste, I don't see any functional restrooms or the providential hidden bucket. So what? What about other spaces? Of course, these poor people don't have a gym room, but I cannot imagine utility. It's the only mechanical workspace and warehouse. They need tools and spare parts, scrap materials and a workbench. Or having a mechanical on board becomes moot. Also, there must be a space for the video. I doubt even a miser like Pony Express would launch months-long whole ships without CCTV equipment to help to avoid liability and to make it possible to attest or disprove allegations later. So there must be a recording device and possibly recorded media, and I don't believe Pony Express would consider below themselves to record their employees without consent or warning. And I suppose they had a changing and shower room, access to the water and air purifier, the energy core, and other facilities, but it doesn't matter how much now, and very soon it won't matter at all. Finally, we arrived to the famous moon screen scene. Curly, insomniac, goes to the lounge only to find Anya by herself doing nothing. The room is so blue, Anya's color, hinting that it's an intimate moment about her. It's so cozy, hazy, and quiet. The other scenes seem hallucinations. This one seems like a dream. First into small chat, then she tries very subtly to get to a point. She tentatively speaks about how the screen has a dead pixel in a corner that in the back of my mind is always there, but he can't see it, and dispels the subject almost immediately. Instead of asking, is there something else that's always in the back of your mind? But it would be a stretch, she recognizes. So she changes tactic, and why is she talking about locks of all things in the middle of the night? Because she wanted to have a lock. Because not having one caused her a problem? And what problem a lady can have by sleeping with no lock? Probably she was sexually assaulted by someone. Possibly that's why she doesn't sleep. Yep, she was. Just look at those sad eyes. About so many players who just didn't get it, it blows my mind. How people cannot get the weirdness of talking about door locks in the middle of the night, of all possible subjects of conversation, as if everyone habitually spoke like that, disjointedly, like pig and brain. And know what's worse? She already told Curly. She told the fact and outed the name, hoping he did something about it, to protect her or to make her justice, and he did nothing. He failed her as a man, so she's gently reminding him. So no, it's not a stretch to expect Curly to ask, is the assault what's in the back of your mind? Is that why you wanted to have a lock? Is that why you don't sleep in your own bunk bed? She's just taking it easy because it hurts too much to speak about it. It hurts too much to verbalize openly. And it's not her place to question her superior. But Curly Dearest here is so deep into everyone being laid off, Jimmy being a cunt in bulk, and whatever new career he plans to follow. He literally forgot he has to do something about it. Or he wouldn't say, "You a what? Who would you?" It proves he knew and forgot. There's something even worse than that. Chronologically, the next scene is on one day before the crash. Anya got tired of playing guessing games with Curly and said with all letters she is pregnant. And Curly knows it was Jimmy who raped her because she told him before, and probably he did it over and over. That's why she's so insecure about how long more the trip will last. It's around 8 months, as they commented yesterday, gazing the fake moon, and she's not sure if she's due before or after the arrival, but certainly very close. It's even possible Jimmy assaulted her because he envied Curly's beauty, or the playful way they jabbed at one another. Worse, it's possible poor Anya was a virgin before all that. Now, she has no means to provoke an abortion, and even less means to have a safe childbirth in this garbage jalopy of a ship you equipped and all. Normally, a clinical abortion is made through medications, and a home abortion through provoking blunt or impact severe trauma. Both work through causing a hemorrhage of the uterus, accompanied of excruciating pain. Both of them require gynecological surgical procedures, and the home type requires immediate emergency care in a hospital. About having a childbirth with minimal chance of survival for both or even one of them, the requirements are much higher, including examinations, medications, cleanliness, and someone acting as a midwife, or at least who knows how to suture human skin. And Anya didn't have even good sharp scissors to cut the baby's cord. You don't stand a chance. And even if it succeeds, they would have no food. And the baby has Jimmy's DNA, so they are a liability. Jimmy is violent, Anya is scared, and Curly did jack shit. So she took to her hands to hide the ship's firearm to avert Jimmy hurting her. She foresees, as the trip comes to an end, Jimmy will be more and more paranoid. She has been living in absolute terror since we don't even know when, and Curly did nothing. Now, for sure, she hopes he does something, finally, since the situation became dire. Anyone can understand it's a difficult situation to wrap your head around. The fact that your longtime friend is an abuser, and you have to try to diffuse the tension and find a solution. And finding solutions is not your forte, and you're already spent. If on one hand seems wishful thinking to believe a man-to-man little chat would solve anything, on the other hand, well, it could. Where there's a will, there's a way. It could placate Jolly Roger, informing him how Anya is not interested in the trauma, the weight, and the cost of a criminal charge against him. So she offers not to press charges if he contributes to alimony as soon as he's settled in a new job that Curly can help him to get, just like the current one. If he just promised to leave the girl alone for the rest of the trip, talk to her only when strictly necessary, and not needed to say, don't touch a single hair on her head ever again. Hell, Curly could even speak to both separately about considering to put the baby to adopt, at least to sound Anya about. It was also an option to call Swansea and Daisuke for support and force Jimmy into a cryogenic pod until the arrival. Maybe with a gun, or maybe by force. Still, it would be better than doing nothing. And better than having to shoot your friend. In a spaceship, things are just like in a sea ship. The captain has power to act in lieu of a judge at law and charge, sentence, and execute someone, with or without some kind of a trial. Curly could very well sentence Jimmy to death and shoot him up. A second option, less personal and more space-like, would be to open the external hatch and eject him to space to die outside, far from their sight. But no, Curly did nothing. Maybe he deluded himself he would have more time. Maybe he didn't care about Anya being assaulted. Or maybe he did care, but he cared more about Jimmy not going to jail. Maybe he didn't believe the assault even happened. Or he believed they had a relationship, and now it's all just a lover's quarrel. Is it possible Curly didn't feel the burden of authority anymore since he was stripped of his position? They were all fired, but he still acts as their captain. But maybe, just maybe, he didn't feel up the role of judge of Jimmy and feared legal consequences for himself back on Earth. Talking about Earth in the game, when talking about the end of the trip or the planned arrival or some kind of a rescue, it seems like no other players or commentators ever realized that the characters never mention Earth. Maybe their final destination was not Earth. Maybe they were subscribed to go to some kind of an outpost. I don't know, it's just something that crossed my mind. Anyway, maybe Curly was unable or unwilling to appreciate the seriousness of a sex assault and felt his intervention wasn't necessary. Maybe Curly himself was so close to a nervous breakdown with sleep deprivation and all, he just wished for his intervention to not be necessary and pretended any of it ever happened. Or maybe Jimmy and Curly had such a toxic, abusive relationship. Curly wouldn't do anything to displease Jimmy because that's what victims of abuse do. I should know, I've been there. We don't do anything that could displease the abuser, and we come up with all kinds of senseless rationalizations for that because we fear the retaliation so much as we fear their abandonment. And is it possible for things to get even worse? Hell yeah! After another entire day of Curly's inertia, now it's 0 days before the crash. Anya confronted Jimmy about the baby, and his answer was no answer. He literally walked away on her. So now Curly simply cannot postpone or pretend anymore. Then, instead of comforting her, he goes very meek and mild, diplomatically, talk to Jimmy to settle things and pacify him and comfort him. And Jimmy reacts to this, blaming Curly, saying it was his fault to not have everything under control. Therefore, his career would be ruined, his reputation in shambles, because everyone would know this happened under his watch, and all of them would be damaged. And he proposes a magical solution to allow Jimmy to cause their demise in a blaze of glory, go missing AWOL despite Curly's bravery and commendable performance. And they close the deal when Jimmy holds Curly's arm. This contact is a contract. And then goddamn Curly says, right! My boy, you broke my heart. What do you freaking mean by right? You should have said absolutely not, only over my cold dead body. I expressly forbid you. But no, you have to be a spineless craven. Your cold feet are colder than the vacuum of space outside the ship.
Distant flickering screen of scenery.
And now we know why we must turn left, but the only option is to turn right, because it's in the best interest of low-life Jimson Reed here. He points the Tulpar to what we surmise to be an asteroid and manually disables the autopilot to avert it, to correct the collision course trajectory, to collide. Then he leaves the cockpit. But instead of the normal corridors of the Tulpar, he walks the game opening scene, convoluted corridors, full of poly images and the cries of a baby, his baby. They symbolize Jimmy to be so fixated in these two topics. He doesn't even care what he's doing, where he's going to. And maybe it's also a mental coping mechanism to detach, to dissociate from the fact that he already did it. It's over. There's no turning back. They will all die at any moment now. Only he re-enters the cockpit corridor and his reverie is over. He's back to real life. Cornelius hunched in despair by the door. This door is the only way to go. And in the exact moment Jimmy passes through this door, there is a transition. A transition different from all the other pixelated, clanky, glitchy, wonderful transitions before. This is a secret transition in which now we are Curly. And Curly makes a last-ditch effort in saving the ship, but it's too late. And then your inaction condemned us all to the most atrocious fate, and it costed your body and dignity. Now, you are as powerless as Anya felt. You are at Jimmy's mercy, and he has none. Just as before you watched her suffering and did nothing, now you watch all your crew members suffering, and you cannot do anything the more you want. And now your own body hurt, and the loss of your own bodily autonomy occupies center role of your thoughts. It's not just a tiny dead pixel in a corner. Now, is there anything even worse? Guess yes. I don't believe they were real, actual friends, since there's no fondness or any relatability between them. They don't know each other too well and have no tastes in common besides perhaps weightlifting. So I guess Jimmy was Curly's pity project, some kind of My Fair Lady, Pygmalion in space, with no embassy ball or happy ending. And we cannot even find solace in blaming Jamie that much, since Curly's pride in turning a thuggish bum into an accomplished co-pilot at the cost of everyone's safety and mental health came previously to Viper Jimbag's pride, lead him to bare his fangs and poisoned everything with mouthwash. Now, 2 months after the crash, most of the ship became inaccessible. The sleeping quarters are gone. The crew sleeps together in the lounge, in thin bedrolls, all together. Anya sleeps near Polly's statue because it's motion activated and it talks, warning her of any approach, with Jimmy sleeping only 1 meter far from her. By a stroke of luck, we found some canned food. Not much. The pout system is broken, the oxygen supply was cut in half, and the entire thing is unnavigable. Perhaps it's a dead junk going nowhere. Perhaps the asteroid was big enough to sling effect propel us aimlessly. Perhaps the Tulpar is embedded on it and being carried away, whatever is its orbit was or is now. The energy system dimmed the lights for economy, so everything is tinted red. It's a practical measure, but I see it also as a metaphor for Jim Beam's temper worsening as more and more he sees red. Now, everyone's patience about the company's policy of not allowing the crew to know what they carry ran short. So it's time to Jimmy step up and finally do the last action that will inaugurate him as a captain de facto. Using the code scanner, he will get to open the cargo in wishes of finding something useful, contrary to Swansea's vote to not touch it. That's when, in-game, not chronologically, we see the first red flag of insubordination in Jimmy. We still didn't see the sorry state in which Curly finds himself in, but still Jimmy says we don't need him. It sounds conspiratorial. So, you guys don't need a captain? You're acting behind his back? Was I right in worrying about a mutiny? Well, contrary to Jambalaya's attempt of mass murder, or should I call murder-suicide? Or should I call equivalent to suicide by cop? We're all alive, just very shaken. Morale is low, but there is hope. If on one hand, ours was one of the last, or the very last, manned freight ship. On the other hand, in a time of space travel, there are passenger cruises that can happen to find us and rescue us. Perhaps an unmanned ship will have no resources to rescue us or to keep us alive, not even cryopods. Perhaps they're not even programmed to do any kind of rescue. But if we can apply anything from other works of science fiction, perhaps they are by default, or at least until the very last manned hull to be accounted for. Meanwhile, we all mostly spend the days in the mess room, since our sleeping quarters are gone, and other parts of the ship are inaccessible. The crash caused the ejection of protective muffler foam to patch up the breaches in the hull, but then how? Foam spread everywhere, on the inside too. And what should be its best feature ended up being our disgrace, because it's hard enough to block passages, but brittle enough to collapse and put the hull in risk of another breach, decompression, the oxygenation. So we must go around it stepping on eggshells, carving small sections when really needed, but generally not touching it. Now, Jimmy is the self-appointed bigwig, exactly how he wished, and he's hating it. He's not up to the responsibilities. His crewmates asking for guidance annoy him. Taking decisions annoy him. Performing chores annoy him. Taking care of Curly annoys him. He feels overwhelmed and anxious. I suppose Jimmy not necessarily was the second in succession to be the leader. I suppose the co-pilot doesn't have to be the leader in extraordinary circumstances. Maybe even the pilot doesn't necessarily have to be the leader in extraordinary circumstances. By seniority, age, and experience in space, Swansea should be the next captain in my opinion. And I sense in his own opinion too. But Jimmy showed enough of a violence threat to make him cower. At least he retained the keys of his kingdom. Nobody but Swansea enters the utility room, because according to him, it's a single mass wall of foam he has been patiently carving to rescue some tools. So now the cryogenic sleep is not an option anymore. Swansea pathetically responsible for keeping the food and cooking too, I suspect, because Anya feels so sick all the time, and she spends more and more time at the medical, reading the ship's manuals, maybe in hopes she can somehow learn how to pilot it, also taking care of Curly. The problem is, Anya isn't disposed of feeding Curly the medicine, since he cannot give his consent. She hates invading him, forcing the pills down his throat, since he has no lips or tongue anymore to swallow by himself, just as she was invaded. Jimmy likely forced something else down her throat that made her gag, invade, and dislike. And the noises, wow, there are no words to describe. Now, let me demonstrate how it goes feeding Curly his medicine. Even the small sound of his mouth being forced open is disturbing. And then there's this achievement thing. How sadistic can it be to expect the player to keep toying with his jaw? Opening it once was enough to already make me feel disrespectful. And I don't like adventurous spirit. In games where we can fall, I keep throwing myself from different heights over different kinds of ground just to see what happens. When there are grenades or rocket launchers, I explode myself from different distances just to see what happens. Anyway, Anya's morning sickness is triggered by the organic sounds of Curly's throat, so she flatters Jimmy in a sign of subservience to persuade him, although you can still sense the weak irony hidden in it. She risks to use knowing he won't get it. The way how she says he's so capable is definitely petulant and psychophantic, but it's music to his ears. And how their dialogue after feeding his meds is emblematic of the relationship. And when we play, we just don't see it. Only the benefit of hindsight allows us to see how Jimmy is gazing Anya from above, and she's doubled over herself, nursing her hurting womb. And then she says, I want to believe our worst moment don't make us monsters, Jim. It's like if she's saying this statement is for you, Jim. She calls him Jim, a nickname. She's the only one to call him Jim besides Curly, in an attempt to placate him. And if she wants to believe, it means she doesn't believe. She's still trying. And then she says, I have to, even in his case. I don't know why I had the gut feeling that she was actually saying, I have to believe it even in his case, not only yours. I don't know, I had no reason for that. It was, as I said, just a good feeling, just a hint. Curly is the whole case study, so I'll talk about him later. There's a lot to be said about, but please bear with me. For the moment, let's pretend he's still not a sort of intense questioning and reflection, and proceed with the chronology. 3 months after the crash, finally Anya reached her limit. Putting up with Jimmy's constant degrading, she told her secret to Swansea. Jimmy interrupts the talk when Anya says, no, I understand completely, if that's how it has to be. So it's kinda clear that Swansea refused to get rid of Jimmy for her. She's crying, and Jimmy has the gall to ask why, but she deflects. She admits she didn't medicate Curly, so now it's time for round 2.
Round 2. Fight!
I will not play the entire scene here. It's another possible hallucination by Jimmy, and it serves to signal us that Jingle Bells is fixated between the idea of eating Curly and the wish to take the axe from Swansea. Now, I must give a warning. We are broaching a delicate subject, that is cannibalism. Most societies consider the ultimate taboo to kill. But there are some other actions a depraved or mentally ill person can perpetrate against the body after its death that are considered equally or even more severe. We will concentrate in one of them, eating the dead. There are two key concepts that absolutely must be considered when the issue is eating the dead. One of them is cannibalism. In biological science, cannibalism is the term for feeding on one's own species. Just that. It's a neutral noun, non-qualifier, non-judgmental. Doesn't denote the reasons for feeding. Broad knowledge takes us to believe it's for nutrition, since feeding is an instinct and a cadaver contains nutrients. Most industrialized modern countries don't have laws against human cannibalism, since many other laws surrounding the act are enough to deter or punish the perpetrators. Besides, hardly a court would condemn someone for that in an extreme case of desperation, dire need, sheer will to survive. About the act in itself, it's reported that the parts better identifier as human are usually avoided, like hands and feet and the head. Fatty parts and soft muscle are preferred for obvious reasons, and to speak more of it would be morbid and sad. It's not my objective, so I'll cease. Meanwhile, in anthropology, there is a term for human cannibalism, not for nutrition ends, called anthropophagy. From ancient Greek, anthropophagy happens when an individual, but much more commonly a community or an entire people, have in their culture the custom of consuming human flesh. It happened usually in prehistoric and ancient time, but still currently happens in small groupings living in isolation in the wild. It's much more prevalent in communities that can be called aboriginal or indigenous, which is an extremely problematic and sensitive subject. I will not enter in the concepts of imperialism, white colonialism, Eurocentrism and such. Just be warned, this is a question that involves all this and must be treated with respect, but not here and now. I'm much more interested in the mystical aspect of anthropophagy, the belief that when you consume the flesh of someone, you're owning them, dominating them. They belong to you now. They are part of you and cannot escape. It makes you somehow victorious over whom you eat. You absorb their spirit and their qualities, and then they are yours to manifest. I believe Jiffy envied Curly so much, coveted so much his position, his accolades, he decided the only way to best him was to consume him. Note that I use the word consume very pointedly here. I mean consume in the sense of sapping, depleting, obliterating. Like when tuberculosis was called consumption because the person wasted away. This consuming is not only eating, it's destroying by eating. If Jimmy was so up to consume someone to survive, it would make so much more sense to crave for Swansea that is chubby, much more nutritious. But nutrition is just not here. This is about power. So, back to the game. Curly and Jimmy are having this literal pity party. This folie d'eau, which is a manner to refer to how two persons can share a delusion to the point they don't know who started it anymore. It's a cute cake at all. Blood red. Very proper to the occasion, since it must resemble flesh and blood. Now, observe another aspect of the mystical cannibalism and the codependence of their closed space. Observe how the lighting is smartly arranged to make Curly seem to glow like a saintly figure, like an idol, deified. Curly had a better situation than the others, not so much better. To the point he is unhappy. Jimmy sees him as so much more than that. Only because he is in a somewhat better place. Jim Jones avidly covets him, and because he's utterly helpless, we can see him as a sacrifice. The docile victim is laid on the altar, consecrated, immolated and quartered with a blade, then shared among the commensals, who celebrate. Curly's birthday is linked to his death day through the cake. The eternal cycle of hospitality. People share meat and mead, and this fraternizes them. This is my flesh. This is my blood. Observe how, in both occasions, Jimmy is seated at the head of the table, presiding the function. Just like in the birthday, he used the moment of distraction, while Curly baked the cake, to take his seat by right, as the captain, and Curly didn't admonish him. Now, in his thickening birthday party of the dead, finally earned the placing. And if before you player didn't experiment to harm Curly, now it's the time. Now you're required to swing the axe on him to advance the scene. Of course it's just a dream sequence, and you're not allowed. But for a moment, the fear, how we try to brace to see the blow that doesn't come, the lifeblood spurting that never comes, and then sweet relief. And then guilt, because the roller coaster almost made us to forget how outside the vision Curly was brutalized just minutes ago. And we wonder if Jimmy is able to beat someone who has no hands or feet or tongue or skin. Is he able to make a man to become like this in the first place, so that he couldn't talk? He was the first on the scene, being only steps away. He could very well help Curly to be like that, or at least aggravate what was already bad enough. Four months after the crash, Daisuke is laying on the floor face down like a dead person, but he soon recovers enough only to finally break. He had been trying so hard to be useful and not a nuisance, to learn, to keep positive and cheer the others, to keep the hope. The developers admitted Daisuke didn't want to come at all, but his Asian mother, like Asian mothers do, prodded him to busy himself. And I guess his last minute addition came because he used some kind of influence over Pony Express to take him to a ship unprepared for 5 tripulants. There's no food enough for all to start with, and only 4 stasis pods. If anything happened, someone would be guaranteed to die. At the point of no return, Daisuke gives up on feeding off mouthwash, even if it means to starve to death. And still, his heart is so good, he wishes his mom not to blame herself for his demise. Poor angel. Anya also arrived at her breaking point. She eventually considers to drink, entire 2 months after the whole breaching. Not because she worries alcohol would hurt a baby. On the contrary, when she says it would solve anything, she's lamenting mouthwashing cannot cause an abortion. And what an irony. Dragon Breath Axe kills 99.99% of germs, while the proved efficiency of condoms is 99.99%. Well, she avoided drinking until now to not be vulnerably intoxicated, which means now the stress is so high and the hope so low, she considers just yield, stop struggling and give up. It also means she denied herself the calories of mouthwashing until now, living off the scarce food remaining, resulting in being always hungry, a thing that already impairs the baby development and her cognitive function. She may very well give herself the sweet relief of being drunk. Also, I doubt the others waived their food on her benefit, seeing that she only told Swansea 3 whole months after the crash, and apparently Daisuke never got to know she was pregnant. Now Anya holds the mouthwashing, sitting in front of the last of the food, about 12 cans. She will have to resort to mouthwash if she wants to live at all. And what makes her think it's a good idea to tell me where the medicines are? Does she want to tempt me with suicide? Or is she already considering to take them herself? She cannot possibly believe they're gonna be of any help to Curly. In his state, 10 milligrams of oxycodone was barely enough. 500 milligrams of paracetamol will tickle his pain. But now, Jimmy finally has an excuse to take the X from Swansea. That's not the first instance in which Swansea is directly sarcastic to Jimmy, but it's the clearest one. And he says, our previous tragically inclined leader, in opposition to our current tragically inclined leader, that is Jimmy. But Gillyflower didn't get it. Again. 5 months after the crash, if Anya thought her lowest was a month ago, was wrong. Lowest is now. Alcohol oblivion didn't work apparently. Can't figure the gun case code. She keeps feeding paracetamol to Curly. Last lethal substance she knows of run out. She will have to slowly starve or die of childbirth, so that locks herself up in medical. Jimmy and her have a terse, cryptic dialogue. Bring Rod Jimmy and get it all, which she announces exiting this world her own volition, on her terms. Enforced, yes, eating it head high. Yes, Jimmy, even she's dispatching Curly to intervene. Instead of asking Swansea to talk to her, knowing they get along well, or asking Swansea if medical has other entrances or a weak wall or something, he trusts Daisuke, the intern, to know about these architectonic details. He decides to roof Swansea with a highly lethal concoction, steal his key, enter utility, and guilt trip Daisuke to enter the vent shaft. And don't even start me out about how easy it was for Jimmy to plot and implement the rape cocktail for Swansea. That led many fans to believe he intoxicated Anya to take advantage of her. But no, it's just not possible. When he assaulted her, the mouthwash was locked up in the cargo and the rubbing alcohol locked in the cabinet. And Jimmy didn't know about any of those. There were no intoxicants available. But I digress. They broke utility just to find out Swansea lied. There's not much foam, and one pod is still free and working. They talk about it, and Daisuke defends Swansea, even though Daisuke is scheming behind his back, which is a betrayal to the man who was to be his mentor. Well, he entered the shaft, where, like a real Captain Odd, Jimmy should have entered himself, and still, he sent Daisuke, knowing he could die. Something wrong inside. First, almost hurt Tanya, and I wonder if she was meddling with the grate, trying to find a place to hide from Jimmy inside the shaft. Then triggered the foam that covered Daisuke. Now there's hard foam, jagged metal, and live wires everywhere. In a claustrophobic darkness that nobody knows the length of, or the twists and turns. Daisuke gets hurt, exits the shaft, and drags himself to unlock the door. He was too late. Anya is already dead. Maybe she was already dead as soon as she stopped answering them. 8 hours before the judgment, Daisuke lies in his bedroll, that is his deathbed. He is bleeding profusely from an open gash next to his heart. A furious Swansea demands the isopropyl alcohol to disinfect the wound. How did he know of its existence, I wonder? I cannot fathom. But anyway, there's none, since we spent it all to make the mocktail. Swansea is so worried about Daisuke. He doesn't even waste time arguing for being drugged. Now the task is to find something else. Jimmy traversed the Asherian Hall in the den of the blind beast of the cargo hold. It represents the desperation of Jimmy towards the meager, completely ineffective way their stupid capitalist employer, Pony Express, furnished their ships with the basic tools for solving even a small-scale accident, much less to survive a catastrophic crash, like the one he caused. He's desperate not because he cares, but because the death of Daisuke will ruin his attempt of being seen as a competent leader. Diet not only on his watch, but by his orders, and they are miserably unequipped to even wash, sew, and tape a wound. If he was thinking more clearly, he would remember the medical kit, which might be better than nothing. But Swansea is so mad at him, he doesn't even consider how antiseptic is preposterous over a bleeding wound. It would only make it worse. Anyway, how good can it be? Having the medical kit. What will it contain? A stethoscope, a sphygmomanometer, a thermometer, luckily some needles and catgut. And then what? Suing someone in real life is not like Mission Impossible. People don't just sue human skin without any training. And the two morons there didn't even think about applying pressure over the wound. 6 hours before the judgment, Daisuke is in the same pitiful state for the last 2 hours. That's the time that it took to Jimmy Neutron delirium tremens to go to the cargo hold and back just to fetch one single batch of mouthwashing bottle that in the end did nothing else than causing more pain to Daisuke. After all, powering anything over an open wound can only thwart any possibilities of the immunologic system try to close the thing with platelets. It just washes away any scarring. It broke my heart how Daisuke, always good-natured, still apologized for failing, even when he's dying. And then Swansea forced himself to get him out of his misery.
Shine on, just shine on. Close your eyes and they'll all be gone. They can scream and shout that they've been sold out, but it paid for the cloud that we're dancing on. So shine on, just shine on. With your smile just as bright as the sun.
Now, in a frenzy, taken to the brink of hysteria, Jimmy accuses Swansea of murder, calls him a monster, throws to his face the emergency pod being hidden behind lies. When he told the biggest lie of all, even tries to accuse him to side with Anya, alluding to the late-night conversation in the cockpit he interrupted, 2 entire months before? Swansea retorts it was not an exchange. It was Anya admitting to Jimmy's attack in a last effort, someone take care of her. But Jimmy brushes it off like he does with anything related to Anya. It makes us wonder if he really believes he did nothing wrong and no reason for the fuss, or if it's all a macho show to save face. If before Jimmy was fooling himself about saving everyone, keeping poor Curly torturously alive for no reason, and then trying to avert Anya to commit suicide, if before most probably all of them, in secret, considered euthanasia and cannibalism, and possibly all of them considered to force Swansea to finally display his infamous wall of foam, or to propose collective suicide. Now the cat is out of the bag. A killing happened, and Jiraiya finally derailed in force. If before he was having episodes, now he is in full-blown psychosis. He runs from the mess room and wanders the corridors without realizing, looking for the captain's firearm, and finally comes to his senses in medical, when he then acknowledges Anya's body that he has seen before, but in such a haywire state, he didn't even register it. Anya had hidden the gun case in the medical under Curly's gurney. She tried in vain to find a combination and ultimately swallowed all remaining paracetamol pills. Now, I'd like to give a very serious warning. The developers had the sensibility of depicting Anya's death by paracetamol ingestion differently from how it works in real life. It's not a realistic picture. real death by paracetamol poisoning happens some days later, not immediately as in the game, and it's accompanied of symptoms that are not gastric hemorrhage and that I will not mention. The only thing I can say is that it's a way of dying so painful as the game make it seems to be. Now, if you approach the open hatch and examine it, Jimmy will say, "I cannot see the blood anymore." Of course he says he cannot see the blood anymore. The blood from the gaping tunnel, like a hungry mouth, where he sends Daisuke to a gruesome death. The blood from Anya's vagina, be forced open like a wound, from which only death could come forth, because he just had to meddle with it, with her, with them all. Jimmy has the code scanner, got the case code in the cockpit, and open it. And when he palms it, Curly erupts laughing at the cosmic irony that Anya only wanted to keep the gun away from him, and now he got it so easily, laughing at the ridiculousness and stupidity of how they all ended up, laughing at Jimmy's naivety in believing he could possibly solve anything with a gun, especially now after everything has been said and done. It reminded me a lot of Samuel Beckett's play Endgame. Let's watch an excerpt of it.
Finished. It's finished. Nearly finished. It must be nearly finished. Grain upon grain, one by one, and one day suddenly there's a heap. A little heap. The impossible heap. I can't be punished anymore. I'll go now to my kitchen 10 feet by 10 feet by 10 feet and wait for him to whistle me. Nice dimensions. Nice proportions. I lean on the table and look at the wall and wait for him to whistle me.
Now, the door that I left open is closed at my back, and when I open it, Swansea is there, swinging the axe at me as a maniac. In reality, no, he's not. It's Jimmy's paranoia. He sees Swansea as a murderous monster that is coming for him. After killing Daisuke to ensure the cryogenic pod all for himself, Swansea told him he doesn't care about the pod anymore, but Jimmy didn't listen. That's when I realized he was saving the pod for Daisuke, not for himself. And now that he's dead, the pod doesn't matter anymore. That's why he said the pod doesn't matter anymore. Nothing matters anymore, since the guy basically had to kill. I'm sorry. The guy basically had to force himself to kill the man he started seeing as a son. Swansea most probably is running the corridors looking for a place to hide. Jimmy goes to the cockpit to fetch the rope stashed inside the locker, and again hallucinates Swansea is at a door, threatening to cut him up to 20 pieces. Imagine Swansea cutting someone to 20 pieces! It's just not a thing. Daisuke, in all his life and experience and naivety, realized Swansea complains but is not violent, doesn't hate anyone, he's just bitter. Only deranged Jimmy can't believe he could kill in cold blood. Jimmy's so beyond saving, he even didn't realize he witnessed a euthanasia with his own eyes. Swansea is not crazily following Jim to butcher him. Jim is crazily following Swansea to shoot him until they end up meeting at utility. At gunpoint, Swansea allowed himself to be seated and to have his hands tied up to his back, and then he pronounced his beautifully heartfelt last words. The scene is what I playfully call breaking off the fifth wall. Swansea is not only finally giving us his background, and not only lecturing Jimmy about how he allowed himself enter a downward spiral of envy, jealousy, and greed, so certain that a good position with a good payment would for sure bring him a good life, when that's not how life works. That the goals Jimmy is killing and dying for now are the same goals Swansea pursued years before, and he achieved them, and then he felt miserable. The same goals Curly had been pursuing until now, and then he felt miserable. That a good life comes from being yourself and doing what you enjoy, not from being the boss. And that powerless situation, today you have it, tomorrow you don't. You're always one setback away from your worst self. But most importantly, he tells Jimmy and us he was saving the bot for Daisuke, who was so young and had his whole life ahead of him, and for whom Swansea developed a bonus like a father and son relationship. Thinking about the way Daisuke's internship happened last minute, perhaps Pony Express didn't habitually hire the interns for the travels. Perhaps Daisuke was the first intern Swansea ever had. I suppose he felt proud to be teaching his craft to someone, since donkeys became so estranged to him. And then finally, Swansea talking about protecting Daisuke from Jimmy. What the fuck? And about Anya, because of whom everything went to the shitter to start with. She told him, and why would that be? It was not idle gossiping. She wanted to be protected. He still had the axe. And what did he do? A whole bunch of nothing. Maybe she didn't have the chance to voice without the dots and the I and crossing the T's that she wanted him gone because they were interrupted. But she shouldn't need to ask. Another irony I observed is that Swansea started carrying the axe after Anya's talk, probably to be ready to protect Anya or Daisuke from Jimmy. We don't see him doing that before. He had not been carrying it around after Curly gave it to him. Only after the 3 months after scene. Now, Swansea doing this triggered Jimmy to no end, to the point he started fantasizing about taking it for him, when actually until now, when the axe was just unused somewhere, she was not concerned about it, just as Jimmy knew where the knife was. But he only went after it when he decided to amputate part of poor Curly to feast on him. But anyway, now, in this emotional dying speech, not a word about her. But it's beautiful. It's riveting, because it's true, and also down to earth. The sound design is exquisite, like sandpaper on exposed nerves. Seems like a mare's bow composition. The footage rolling is so mundane and universal. The entire human experience in a number of seconds, imprinted in a celluloid film. Individuals, families, and multitudes. Transportation, work, study, sleep, solitude, melancholy. He's making peace with his own mortality, and perhaps, why not just say, making a reckoning with his maker. If there is a power above somewhere, Swansea is giving up his spirit to them, unveiling his most intimate, and getting ready for whatever happens. If there is a judgment for him, his life choices were not the best, not the most commendable to be seen favorably. And then Jimmy shoots him twice for good measure. This is the beginning of Jimmy's judgment. I have to admit, pungent and impressive as it is, Jimmy's judgment passed through me entirely. Not because I didn't get it or I don't agree with it, but I found it so unnecessarily long and boring. It's a drag. I'm sorry, it's a drag. All those corridors could be so much shorter, with the same effect, I guess. Much on the opposite, if the developer intention was to throw in an inane series of walking corridors like this, believing that we would use the time to reflect some more on the most impactful scenes, it got lost. Much preferable would have been to have given us more time in the scenes themselves to absorb what happened. Anyway, just brushing over, Jimmy has to fall from the shaft in medical, walk through corridors seeing Daisuke or signs of his presence, sometimes having to walk backwards to advance, always being faced with messages to take responsibility, to finally fall where Swansea is seated. Now we got a boss fight, which I truly hated. I had to change the mouse sensitivity to several times higher than my habitual, only to be able to swerve and turn in time to shoot Swansea. Being neurodivergent, we are never so fast reflexed as we would like to be. At least it made me understand how annoys Swansea that Daisuke never had a chance to live or a decent burial. None of them had. But I don't know, man, I just hate. I mean, for example, there are two, I guess, achievements, Steam achievements, related to gestures you do just before shooting Swansea in the cemetery, one of the 3 required times, that I know that I will never be able to perform. It's just, I don't have it in me. But anyway, not making it about me, but coming back to me, I didn't understand at all the meaning behind the scene putting Jimmy inside Curly and living through his mouth. However, I really enjoyed the valves and screens puzzle. Enjoy, I don't mean it made me joyous at all. But you see, I think art must be enjoyable, but it doesn't must be beautiful or pleasant. Or I wouldn't be playing mouthwashing, I guess. Again, my nerves were all frazzled, manipulating Curly's insides, just to see him throwing up precious calories he needs over and over, while his screams made me want to scream. Then TV Jimmy meets TV Curly on fire for this surreal and utterly uncomfortable conversation that we really wish to be able to see as a reckoning. Even the heroic soundtrack makes it seem like a closure scene. But where is Anya? Why do I have to see Jimmy feeling good about himself, asking forgiveness to Curly and only to Curly for ruining everything when he didn't apologize for anyone else? Why am I seem to be expected to feel okay about sexual assault being called a mistake? Well, semantics apart, now Jimmy has to be judged about his unwanted murder child, innocent of being conceived from such a horror. And the encounter happens in the form of a bulbous mass of flesh that resembles a heart but represents a womb. And inside it, we have to find 3 times a hybrid pony baby. Why thrice? When it's done, the uterus heart opens its eyes, opens its labia, and spews out a pony centipede baby that makes no sense, but causes scares enough, I concede. On examination, Jimmy decided the baby being killed was like a washing away that's fresh and gets rid of a bad taste. Except that running from the thing in a maze seems unnecessary to me. People normally play the game in 1 session, so by now it's also tiresome. We had an emotional overload, and we feel numb and dry, as it's normal after a good cry. When we arrived at the spiraling card scene, we are already too callous to fear the darkness ahead, but it's nice to realize when you're ascending long enough, the animation lets us see that we could very well be descending or even walking in a straight line, just like happened in the first long stairs before confronting the blind beast. And talking about confrontation, since you ran away from Anya's womb and what could get out of there, now your baby themselves confronts you in the shape of Polly, the pony that looks like a donkey. You know that because he calls you old man, like father, and because his speech lines are in color blue, Anya's color. but mostly because he's under the full moon, where you enjoy it to be. And this baby, whom you didn't allow to live, is the only character that has a voice. I'm sure these guys from Studio Ron Gargan, deliciously meticulous as they are, didn't choose to not have voiced characters for no reason. I mean, I know it reduces the budget a lot, but I believe it was an artistic choice, that they could have full voice acting if they wanted to. But it makes sense that only Polly has a voice, the non-living, non-human one, the annoying symbol of a disgrace of an employer and an unborn little baby, melded into one inside Jimmy's train wreck of a mind. He mixed up his layoff, his unwanted fatherhood, and his ruthless sexual desires in one single entity, a chimera, a cartoon pony. That's why he offended Anya with his passive-aggressive non-joke about feeling aroused by Polly. What he's saying actually is, I think about horses, but I fuck you. That's how low and unimportant you are. I think about horses when I assault you. I think about horses while fapping after assaulting you. Not about you. And then finally, we got to the last scene where Jimmy carries Curly in his arms, forces him inside a cryogenic sleep stasis pod, and supposedly blows his own brains in off screen. I like to imagine the shot was not enough and he agonized for some hours. But this is the schadenfreude in me. By the way, I see many people saying in 20 years' time, if not rescued, Curly will wake up traumatized and with no food. And if rescued, it will be in 20 years. Seems like those folks don't consume any other form of space sci-fi media. I thought by now stasis capsules would be a recurrent part of the pop culture. But not. We still have to clarify that the pod energy can last up to 20 years, but maybe it malfunctions before. That perhaps Curly can be rescued and wake up before 20 years. And that if 20 years elapse with no rescue, the battery will die out and Curly will not wake up. The processes of waking up are part of the functioning of the pod features and require energy to perform. The reason why the very few real people frozen to die will stay like that indefinitely is because mankind still doesn't know how to resuscitate a thawed person. For all causes and effects, a frozen person is dead and stays dead after the ice is melted. And the frozen people know, well, they knew before they got frozen, that living again is only possible when and if we create technology for that. I've seen a lot of netizens mentioning Curly is conscious during the frozen time. No, he's not. He's dead. Fast freezing makes all the cells of a living being to stop working abruptly. And even if it was not really the case, all the ship systems will shut down in a month or two from now. If the heating is not working, the temperature in the Tulpar will be the same as the space outside, minus 270 Celsius, more or less. Too cold to thaw. Pod opener closed. Popsicle Curly. Forever. But in peace. Finally, if his spirit can rest. And for years and years, the Tulpar will be their silent, cold, dark mausoleum. And they will not have even the warm, composting embrace of Mother Earth to return to. Forlorn and forgotten, the corridors mutely resounding their struggles, mindless echoes of their last actions, unseen and unpraised. The extant energy of their warmth, coalescing in vague sparkles, like the tiniest will-o-wisps. Finally, I bring the saddest realization of them all. The way how the foam spread, the playable parts of the ship ended up isolated from the entry opening and any possible external hatches. It means if someone approached and latched on the ship, they would have entered it and eventually got stuck apart from the characters. They wouldn't be able to listen if there's anyone alive inside, and most probably just gone away. It means possibly they were already found in any moment since the crash. Nobody heard them. They didn't hear anybody. The rescue left. know you all think it's too late for that, but now, finally, I'll talk about Curly. Perhaps there was a fire, an explosion with fire, or perhaps the foam alone was able to make him wounded like that. When we observe the sheer quantity of it in the cockpit, we see Jimmy saying he could have ended up mummified in it, and he remembered the sticky squelching sound of Daisuke ripping free of it in the beginning. We are not sure what exactly caused his skin to deglove like that. Daisuke was clothed in pants, and nothing happened to his skin. Curly was clothed too, even with his arms covered, but perhaps the foam was so much it made the cloth too fuse to his skin, or perhaps the ejection was too sudden. It caused like an impact wave or something. And if there really was a fire first, ripping him free could have very easily flayed him all through. But the fact is, Curly has no skin, no lips, no tongue, no left eyelid, no ears and no extremities. His right eye could have been sealed shut in melting skin. Or maybe his eyeball carbonized. Maybe his extremities carbonized or gangrened, and Anya had to amputate them. Or maybe they were so firmly stuck to the foam they teared apart from its limbs during the rescue. Now we have a second glimpse of Anya's personality and capabilities. Even believing Curly tried to kill them all, still, she takes care of him to the best of her abilities, to the best the circumstances allow. And he being kept alive for 5 months is no less than a miracle. Degree or not, Anya really is a doctor in her heart, and already vowed her oath years ago. Now Curly is completely helpless, needing care 24/7 and in unbearable pain. Curly is the element of the game that needs most of our capacity of suspension of disbelief. Anya is able to keep him alive for months in this state, only with wet old bandages to control his haywire homeostasis, painkiller, mouth feeding, and some rudimentary operations. There's no blood transfusion, no general anesthetics, no antibiotics, and obviously no skin grafts. But still, Curly didn't enter toxic shock syndrome or had sepsis, multi-organ failure, or gangrene. Neither seems to have the fast neurological decline observed in heat-burn patients. This is only my opinion, a layman with no degree in medicine and only personal experience with a family member suffering from fast neurological decline after head trauma followed by a stroke. Also is my opinion the fact that if on one hand Curly is not what the narrative objectively sees as a disabled person, but literally an agonizing person, a person everyone is just waiting for to die. On the other hand, does it matter? Societies, have no real consensus about what constitutes a disabled person. How many times a disabled person needing services, medication, a tax break, or a pension from their government, and is treated like a science specimen, an object instead of a subject, or straight away like a fraudster that have to jump hoops and dance the limbo, parade through expert after expert, or have to get printed, signed, and stamped a fuck ton of papers, obtained and handled in different addresses, just to prove they are disabled enough or the right kind of disabled. All the while, people who subscribe for benefits due to any other reason have so much less difficulty. I've seen so many people in the fandom saying Curly is now quadriplegic. It is not. Quadriplegia means to have lost most of all control of the 4 limbs, making them too stiff or too soft to move. Curly moves freely, all 4 residual limbs, which means he can communicate. He can lift his left arm or right arm. We see that when Anya forgets his painkillers. In several scenes we can see he can roll his eye, and in the final scene we can see he can roll his neck freely too. He can have conversations. He can denounce Jibo a snake, and paramount, he can say if he wants to be kept alive. People talk about him in his face, but no one talks to him. In my headcanon, Anya tells him childhood stories, movie plots, and fairy tales to distract both of them from their pains, from being trapped together. And the trap Curly is in is his own body. Now, I would like to make it a part about being a disabled person with chronic pain, because this is my reality, and I make no secret of it. Besides food, air, and water, the other pressing concern the crew has is about Curly's medicine. Without his painkillers, his cries of unbearable pain can be heard throughout the entire ship. And they put everyone on edge. The meds are running low, and when they're gone, they will have nothing to keep him quiet. Jimmy voices his worry about keeping him quiet. Nothing about keeping him without pain. His pain is not the point, and it's so easy to put ourselves in the crew's shoes and imagine to try to live with this noise. His noise, that even for a moment, even during this scene only, we forgot to put ourselves in Curly's shoes. Imagine how it is to live with this pain. The emotional toll of being incapacitated, of living with chronic pain, is huge. The energy put into pushing away the pain to the background, to keep it tolerable, to pretending it's not there, is so much. And it's for ourselves as much as it's for the others, for everyone else around. We don't want to be a bother, a burden, a task, a thing. No one wants to be a perpetual inconvenience. The fear of being an inconvenience is covertly taught us since we are infants how someone must be capable and productive, must have eagerness, ambition, and stamina to have value, to be respected, to count. A person that cannot produce is less than a person. A person that cannot produce is a useless eater. And you know who else thought like that about special needs people? Nazi Germany. Society does so much to dehumanize disabled people. It's amazing how disabled people are abandoned as soon as they start a struggle. Like if people feared disability is contagious. Like if people fear to be considered broken or inferior for fraternizing with the disabled. The fear of abandonment, the longing to be able, and the anger to not be. And when someone becomes a job, there comes resentment and a new wave of fear. The fear to be mistreated, to be abused, to be neglected or tortured by our caregivers, to be hurt or starved. The fear to fester over a bed in our own excrement until we fuse to it. In the caretaker's mind, a person can become a monster. How many times on the media, a body deficiency, especially on the head or the face, is the mark of evil, a monster, an unhuman being. Even the terror of seeing himself as a monster is part of Curly's new reality. But just as Jinx was Curly's pity project, now Curly is Jimmy's delusion project. His power trip about being a good leader depends on keeping everyone alive. So he ordered Anya to keep Curly alive at all costs. And I suppose she could just mercy kill him when nobody is looking and declare he couldn't make it. But I also guess she fears Jimmy too much to try. Personally, I also believe she's too much invested in keeping him alive to prove her capabilities. To rub on Jimmy's face, she's not useless. She is not incompetent he tries to make her seem to be. Besides, of course, it's good to keep Curly alive as an eyewitness of everything happening. Moreover, when Jigglypuff states they keep him alive for 2 reasons, we can apprehend that he means to deliver him to the authorities, to go to trial for multiple murder attempts, or to eat him when the food is over. Which is not so likely because they keep feeding him, and that's counterproductive. At least to me, it was the first hint to consider cannibalism. It was the first time to occur to me. All of them maybe are considering the option, and euthanasia too, but nobody vents it because they fear the coma. Meanwhile, Curly is an object of horror, a unique character design, unmistakable, created to cause fear and disgust, to be seen as a prop and not a person, to be seen as a cautionary tale, basically the main marketing item, and already being endeared by fans that sue plushes of him, putting him side by side with enemy mascots like Cubey, Luna, or Kerberos. But at the same time, the only character in the game that had any real development was Curly. In the beginning, he was the magnanimous captain, worried about everything and everyone, but very soon he started to be seen as a murderer. Then slowly we get to know of his complacency, and we hate him for doing nothing, for not protecting Anya or delivering her justice. Hey! Because After all, he was not really so competent. He was also delusional about having the crew depending on him, just to him lacking moral fiber in the crux moments. Then, the jarring vision of his ravaged body invites us to pity and dread. He is a thing, a fearsome thing, a thing of nightmare. And then we witness his vulnerability. Pity becomes compassion. So many people say his state is karmic retribution. It's his comeuppance. But it's not. Karma, lex talionis, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, is reciprocity. The reaction is always proportional to the action, not more and not less. What happened to Curly is hyper. It's so over the top it bores. Slowly seeing how Jibbity Skibbity is spiraling from wishful thinking to full-blast psychosis, we start to doubt Curly's culpability about the ship and believe he regrets his decision about Anya, even if he never declares it. In the end, he becomes bigger than himself because now he used burned Curly plus healthy Curly, but also something else, something of a symbol of everything that transpired in the Tulpar. He is the skilled and friendly leader, but also the incompetent nepotist and enabler. He is the victim of abuse but allowed someone else to be abused. He is a loyal friend, but his friend didn't hesitate to push him under the bus. He is the broken, mangled, dehumanized, frightened thing that people transform in cutesy toys. But also the strapping, handsome, blonde young man, fit and tall, jacket and crisp, that became the comfort character for so many people. If anyone is still watching to this point, thank you so very much for bearing with me. This was my longest and hardest project in this first entire year of a channel. I fucking love you to bits. Love you with my all family, friends, and kindly strangers of the internet. Bye.